With deadlines looming, lawmakers work toward an agreement on how to fund Texas public schools.
We need to make sure that we're educating them in the best way possible.
Now there's a new plan moving forward at the Capitol.
There are 1,000 different ways that you can spend money in school finance.
We look at what's different and why it's raising concerns as time runs short in a session.
She said it, whether she was famous or not. She's like, everyone's gonna know my name.
A Texas mom turning pain into purpose. How her daughter's death is fueling the fight for priority legislation that could change who gets bail in Texas. Big changes could be coming for medical cannabis in Texas. The plan to make it easier for patients to access treatment and allow more ways to take the drug.
Produced from the Capitol in Austin and airing statewide, this is the award-winning State of Texas.
Hello and thank you for joining us. I'm Josh Hinkle. With less than 3 weeks to go in the legislative session, Texas lawmakers still need to pass a public school finance plan. A new proposal from the Texas Senate could move the funding forward. It has almost the same $8 billion price tag as a plan previously approved by the House, but as Capitol correspondent Dylan McKim shows us, there are big differences in how to spend that money.
I hope I don't get choked up when I say this.
Stephanie Stobie has taught for 21 years and mentored over 140 teachers. The Round Rock ISD teacher said the most common thing she hears from teachers who leave the profession:
The pay wasn't commensurate with the workload I had to do.
Our teachers a pay raise this session.
3 months ago, the governor made teacher pay raises an emergency item. But how would the state meet that goal? It's a question being debated in the school finance bill, and a lot of attention is focused on the basic allotment, which is the base level of funding for each student. School districts can use those dollars to pay for things like maintenance, utilities, and staff salaries, including teachers. The House proposes raising the allotment by $440, but the Senate's proposal, led by Senator Brandon Creighton, raises the basic allotment by $55, an idea that has been ridiculed by House Democrats. But Creighton's proposal creates a permanent teacher compensation allotment that's dedicated to teacher pay raises, which he argues would allow school districts to pay more money to support staff like bus drivers and nurses.
That basic allotment is now freed up to cover those individuals in ways that it has not been before.
There are 1,000 different ways that you can spend money in school finance.
Mary Lynn Pruneda, the Director of Education at Texas 2036, a nonpartisan public policy organization, says there are many ways to fund Texas's diverse and vast school districts. She simplified Creighton's idea.
It's like if suddenly you got 10% more on your paycheck, you put that towards your mortgage, that means that you have more money to free up groceries.
Both proposals would infuse about $8 billion additional dollars into public schools, and Stobie hopes the money is spent well to help students.
We need to make sure that we're educating them in the best way possible.
Capitol correspondent Dylan McKim joins us now. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Josh.
So senators heard hours of testimony Thursday on this bill. What are some of the concerns or complaints people have about this plan?
Well, we have to really think about school finance this way. There are 1,200 school districts across our state, and each one of them is going to have some personal reason to have a problem with the finance bill. Maybe they want to tweak a certain thing. So it's really hard to create a finance bill that's going to be perfect for everyone. But some of the more broad things that we heard, concerns, had to do with certified teachers. Under the proposed plan by the Senate, it would get rid of uncertified teachers in public schools by 2030 to phase those out, which uncertified teachers are really helping out school districts who are having a hard time recruiting and retaining teachers. And so this kind of provision would be placed on those public schools, but it would not be placed on the charter schools. And so there was this debate about, well, if charter schools are receiving public dollars and we're treating them like public schools, why don't they have the same requirements as our public schools? Also heard a little bit about the basic allotment. We know that some Texas Democrats have voiced their concerns. Representative James Tallarico says Republicans are gutting this bill because they lowered the basic allotment down to $55 instead of the House's proposal, which is $440. So a huge debate on how we should fund the schools with using the basic allotment. But the important thing to remember, too, is that this bill was left pending in committee, so negotiations are still happening and tweaks can still be made on this proposal.
Well, they better hurry up because I know you're sad about this, but we have just about 2 weeks, a little over 2 weeks left in the session.
I cry in my pillow every night thinking about it.
It's a fun thing to cover, though. But does this have a chance to pass in this limited amount of time?
I think it does have a chance to pass. This is an important issue. This deals with teacher pay, which is one of the emergency items that was placed by the governor back in February. And we know that this Senate proposal wasn't just something that was cooked up by Senator Creighton by himself. He mentioned this on the dais in the hearing on Thursday, that this was a negotiation between the House members and the Senate members, really looking at the school finance and approaching to see how they can find some type of hybrid between the two different proposals in the House and the Senate. This is such an important item, and this is such important dollars, $8 billion for public schools, that this will get passed sometime in the next couple of weeks.
Well, there was another big development related to Texas schools, movement on plans to get rid of the STAR test.
Yep.
What's happening there?
I loved when Representative Brad Buckley laid this bill out. This is his House Bill 4. He says the stars are big and bright in Texas, but the STAR test is not so big and bright here in the state. And he says this is eliminating the STAR test, this bill, and it was met by a bunch of cheers on the House floor from both Republicans and Democrats, really showing the bipartisan effort here to rectify or at least change the way in which we look at standardized testing here in Texas. So the replacement idea is to have 3 separate tests throughout the year. So what you would do is your child would go into school. They would have a test at the beginning of the year, a test in the middle of the year, and then a test at the very end of the year. And what's unique about this is that those test results would be almost immediate, 24 hours after those kids take it. So those teachers, the administrators can look at the results in the beginning of the year and see, okay, where are these kids in this subject matter? Let's train them, or let's give them the proper curriculum we think will help them. Test to see where they are now in the middle of the year. Have we helped them? Have they hindered? Or they need more help? Then we get a final result here at the end of the year. And it would give the state some results to see how Texas students compare to students around the nation, which is something that we're very interested in seeing, how we compare to the rest of the country.
All right, certainly a lot left to wrap up in the last couple of weeks. Good luck with it all.
Thanks, Josh.
Thanks.
Members, the Speaker's desk is clear.
Cheers and applause in the Texas House chamber early Friday morning. Lawmakers reached one of the key deadlines in the legislative session. Thursday was the last day the House could consider House bills on second reading. That meant hundreds of bills died when the clock struck midnight. Among them, a bill to prohibit imported shrimp from being labeled as Texas shrimp. A measure to regulate fertilizers made from treated sewage also missed the deadline, as did a bill to clamp down on squatters. But some notable bills beat the deadline. One would require Texas prisons to install air conditioning. House Bill 3006 calls for completing AC installation by the year 2032. Another bill that passed late Thursday would end liability exemptions for manufacturers who advertise their vaccines. The bill would hold manufacturers liable if someone was harmed by a vaccine. The Texas House narrowly approved a proposal to remove a law criminalizing homosexual conduct from the state's penal code. The measure was declared unconstitutional by the U.S. Supreme Court in 2003. Despite a brief notation indicating the Supreme Court's ruling, state lawmakers have never repealed the language from statute. With Friday's vote, HB 1738 has advanced further in the legislative process than at least 60 previous proposals to repeal the law dating back to the early 1980s.
I'm asking you to vote for a law that upholds the principles that Texans should have the freedom and ability to make their own private decisions without unwarranted government interference. I'm proud to acknowledge the bipartisan support this bill has gathered.
The bill now awaits a Senate committee assignment in the final weeks of the session. Our team has documented the history of this measure in our Outlaw project. You can find a link in this story right now in this week's State of Texas story on your website. From border wall tax breaks to worker verification, illegal immigration is front and center at the Texas Capitol this session. We look closer at the priority bail reforms taken in this conversation and why the death of a young Houston area girl is getting attention. A fast-moving bill could bring big changes to the Texas lottery. Why a senator who previously called for eliminating the lottery is now proposing legislation to keep the games going.